Ready? Great. Thank you. Good evening, Phoenix #1 community. We are about to get started on our governing board meeting for October 10th, Tuesday, and I will call this meeting to order at 5:15. Moving on to our agenda A2, our tribal land acknowledgement. In partnership with the tribes who called Phoenix their home first, we acknowledge and respect the land our schools are built on. We commit to being a strong partner with any and all tribal nations who entrust their children to our schools. We are grateful and honored to be partners. Next, we have the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh my God, I was thinking of the rosemary. I was gonna feel like start praying the rosemary. Can we get a roll call?
Yes, roll call for Ms. Jessica Bueno,
Here.
Mr. Regional Carrillo, Ms. Erica de la Rosa, Dr. Alicia Vink,
Here.
and Ms. Carmen Trujillo.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a quorum, and now we're moving on to adoption of the agenda. Do we have any recommendations from admin?
Yes, good evening, President Bueno, Vice President Trujillo Board and Cabinet in our community. Today, administration recommends that the agenda be adopted without C1 and 2.
Thank you. And do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved with the amendment.
Roger Carrillo, I second.
Vote for Ms. Jessica Bueno,
Yes.
Mr. Regional Carrillo,
Yes.
Ms. Erica de la Rosa,
Yes.
Dr. Alicia Vink,
Yes.
and Ms. Carmen Trujillo.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we have adopted the agenda for this evening's meeting, and we are moving on to current events. Pass it over to Dr. Hagigat.
Thank you again, President Bueno, our members of the board and our community. If you're out there watching, I hope everyone's having an amazing fall break. Lots of rest and fun and staying safe. For my reports today, I want to share with you that our annual financial report has been completed and submitted. And I want to say thank you to the team effort that went into from our business services, human resources, federal programs, and anyone that participated in accomplishing this requirement. It has been a huge undertaking as forms continue to come in at a later time. And so the team has really put a lot of themselves into this. You'll get to hear the outcomes here shortly as part of this meeting. Also, our vaccine clinics were very successful. 252 employees were served and 419 vaccines were administered. We have partnered with Safeway Albertsons for these clinics and have done so for 8 years. And so we also want to thank our benefits department and all of those that participated in making sure that this was a successful effort. Lastly, we thank our principals from Hurd, Faith North, and Dunbar for participating in the City of Phoenix 2023 Partner with the Principal program. Community leaders were paired with principal and got to experience a day in the life of Phoenix #1. We built the days around productive dialogue and future partnerships. And those are the superintendent reports. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to board members' reports. Vice President Trujillo.
Thank you, Thank you, Madam Chair. This week is National School Lunch Week, so I just want to thank our cafeteria, our school lunch staff. There's all different tiers and ways that serves our kids. So I hope they are enjoying their fall break. And trying to think of what we had going on this week, but since it's fall break, I'm drawing a blank. So I will go ahead and relieve you all of my board members' reports. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else? I just wanted to share, hope everybody's having a wonderful, restful fall break. And I did want to also share, last week, we had our SOFG site council at Bethune. And it's really great to be out at each one of our sites. And we're hopeful that more parents attend our site councils. Our next one is the end of November at Capitol. So we look forward to engaging with the Capitol community. And last but not least, I did want to celebrate our birthday girl. Miss Vice President Trujillo's birthday was yesterday, so happy belated birthday. Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Okay, move on to community communications. Mrs. Valenzuela, do we have any?
Yes, we do. We have one electronic community communication. This is from Miss Sofia Carrillo Dahl, and she stated the following. Good evening, President Bueno and members of the governing board. My name is Sofia Carrillo Dahl, and I have the privilege of serving as the president of the Creighton Elementary School District, which neighbors your district. I am excited to inform you our district has recently adopted the SOFG framework, and I am eager to explore opportunities for collaboration in our shared mission of ensuring the academic success of the students we serve. I was particularly thrilled to note the inclusion of the student outcomes focused governance update on the agenda at the September 26th meeting. Months have passed since the approval of this framework, and I believe it's high time we move from deliberation to action. I'm eager to gain insights into the process and how it will shape the future of our districts. However, my excitement turned to disappointment upon my arrival on September 26th. I discovered that all doors were locked, denying me access to public board meeting. It's essential to emphasize that public meetings, as per your policy BE, are meant to be open to the public, and the board should convene at a location accessible to all. Being open to the public extends beyond just convening. It includes ensuring access to the meeting itself. As a result of this issue, I regrettably missed a significant portion of the agenda item because I had to spend time attempting to gain access to the public meeting. I must commend one of your exceptional custodians who eventually unlocked the doors for me, though with some concern about potential repercussions. I assured him that allowing me entry was not in violation of anything because it was a public meeting. It's crucial that we ensure access for all interested parties without unnecessary hindrances. I am genuinely excited to embark on this SOFG journey and learn from the experiences and wisdom of this board. My hope is that in the future, not only I, but members of your community have appropriate and unhindered access to attend public meetings like this one. Phoenix Elementary School District Number 1 is doing remarkable work, and it's essential that access is not denied to anyone who wishes to witness the wonderful things you are accomplishing. Thank you for your time and attention. I look forward to the possibilities of collaboration and more inclusive approach to our shared educational goals. In solidarity, Sofia Carrillo Dahl. That concludes.
Thank you. We're moving on to approval of consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
This is Carmen Trujillo, so moved.
Alicia Fink, I'll second.
Roll call for Ms. Jessica Bueno,
Aye.
Mr. Reginald Carrillo,
Aye.
Dr. Alicia Vink,
Aye.
Ms. Erica De La Rosa.
Aye.
And Ms. Carmen Trujillo.
Aye.
Thank you.
With that, our consent agenda passes and we are moving on to information and discussion, the discussion and refinement for the tool of the superintendent evaluation. There's some attachments to this agenda item. But I will be transparent, and I thought that this agenda item was on for the 24th. So I know I'm not prepared to speak on this. Is anybody else prepared to go through the evaluation tool to decide what we wanted to make sure that we were selecting what the domains were, right? So there's like 6 domains, but then there's also like other indicators. So we need to model that to our district. And then also there's a percentage weight that's also tied to the evaluation as a total.
I did look through it, but I'm also fine with just coming back to it on the 24th when everyone else is prepared as well.
Same. Yeah, I'm fine with coming back. I did review it. I was ready, but I'm fine when everybody is ready.
I agree.
Okay, thank you, everybody. So just for our meeting on the 24th, then we will be able to decide what the domains and then the percentages are. Thank you. Moving on to action item. Request approval of the annual financial report, AFR, for the 22-23 fiscal year. Pass it over to Dr. Hagia.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Mr. Manley up to the podium and he will walk us through the presentation and the AFR. Thank you.
Governing Board President and board members, superintendent and community that's online as well. I am proud to present to you our 2023 AFR. This has been a very interesting process, and I'd like to start by kind of going through it. Some of the background information that, oh, I have the clicker. Nice. Sorry. I have the clicker. By statute, by October 15th, every public school district and charter is required to submit their annual financial report to the state. This recaps the district's revenue and expenses for the fiscal year going from July 1st to June 30th. So this is capturing the fiscal year from last school year. So FY 22-23 from June of last year from July 1st of last year until this most recent June. And again, this needs to be submitted to the Department of Education by the 15th. So this report that you had attached and this presentation is going to mostly go over maintenance and operations, which is our biggest pot of, well, except for federal funds, where most of our money is spent from. Federal projects like title funds, IDEA, Medicaid, et cetera, our capital outlay, bond building funds that we have, and then our classroom site funds, or also known as 301 funds. And so this is going to recap the revenues and expenses by category, salaries and benefits, related expenses, administration, instruction, special ed, et cetera, and then any major capital expenses that we had over the last fiscal year. If you look at the timeline for developing an AFR, basically, this is when we close the books. So we close the books on June 30th. There's an encumbrance period that's after that where we can pay any bills that were or purchase orders that were manifested during the end of that fiscal year, recognizing and confirming all the revenues that we had as a district, recognizing all the expenses. So, for example, the vouchers that we had this year, including any settlement agreements, anything that we spent or sent checks for has been reconciled and recognized as an expense. This will review allocations, journal entries, which is if there's adjustments that needed to be made to our general ledger. And then if you guys remember the independent audit that we had last year that started super late. So typically it begins in September, October. If you remember from the last fiscal year, it really started around January when I showed up as your CFO. But we got it done in April. So we got it done on that timeline. It did point us to, like I shared some of those audit results for better practices, the biggest one being journal entries, but that was part of the audit. I will share that our auditors will be on site in November. We already started and we're already way further ahead than we were at this point last year. The AFR is dependent on forms that are provided by the Auditor General. In history, those are provided to districts in August. I will share that the last form that was shared this year was shared on September 19th, which is extremely late. And they were making corrections to the coding up until yesterday. So I was here late last night working on some school level AFR stuff, but I'm happy to report that it's been completed. So hopefully next year, ADE and the Auditor General will have their house in order and have us our forms by August at the latest. Just diving into the M&O revenues and budgeted and actual expenses. This is a 2-year comparison. It compares 21-22 with 22-23. If you look at that first column talks about what those sources are and any carry forwards revenues, and the bottom part is expenditures. That second column is the prior year expenditures. So you can compare 21-22 with last year, 22-23. If you'll notice, our revenues were up for local sources. County resources the expenditures were less than last year. State sources were up this last year. If you look at the total revenue that the district got for M&O, it was $53,285,000. We had budgeted $56,117, and that's resulted in us having a bit of a carryover. Which I'll report here in a second. If you look at the bottom part, that's expenditures. The bulk of this district's expenses go to people. So that's salaries and benefits. That's the big bulk of it. If you look last 2 years ago in 21-22, we were just shy of $31 million spent. This last year, we were just shy of 30 million. However, if you look at the purchase services, we did have a pretty big bump in purchase services. That's can be explained, like we had to use Titan last year for some custodial work, and for special education, it's very difficult to find highly qualified staff, including IAs, to come work for us. So we've been forced to find vendors to fill those positions, but luckily we were able to do that. And then supplies, we spent 1.3 million compared to 2 years ago, a little bit more than $1 million. The best thing I can report is that we ended up with a surplus or a carryover of about $5.8 million out of our M&O fund, which is great. That can help us this year and future years, because that carries over. This is sort of the same information, looking at the full scope of our funds in a chart type of bar graphs. If you look, you see 3 big columns. The first one is maintenance and operations, M&O. So like I had mentioned, that is really the bread and butter for how we take care of regular education, special education, transportation. Our DSEG funding goes into M&O. And if you look at the second largest source of revenue, it's federal projects. That's the big one in the middle. If you look at the beginning balance, we had a ginormous beginning balance of over $60 million. We also had a healthy revenue of just over $30 million. I do need to warn that ESSER 3 and the ESSER funding it will be leaving the building as of next September. So while we've had this as a very healthy backstop as a district, the whole state, in fact, the whole country has had this sort of a federal funding as a backstop, that is leaving the building. So I know that we have been, between Dr. Gonzalez, myself, and federal programs, we've been looking at how to land post ESSER funding. It's going to be difficult, but it's what we all are going to need to do. Also in that federal projects, that also has like our title funding, IDEA funding, Medicaid, E-rate, which is a mechanism that the feds give us for a discount on technology pieces, and then the ESSER funds. And that describes really for each big section of the bar graph, it shows how much revenue we had, how much carryover we had, the expenses that we had, and then the actual expenses that were separate from the budget. If you notice in bond building, you'll see a pretty strong tower there. That's the revenues that we got for that first issuance of the 2022 bond that we floated. So again, thank you to the board and the community for allowing us to do that. You'll notice that didn't result in a whole bunch of actual expenses because we got those funds on June 15th, which gave us a whole 14 days left of the annual fiscal year, but that still needed to be reflected on this AFR since we got those funds last fiscal year. Once again, if you look at our M&O, our expenditure summary for a comparison, we're about where we should have been. So if you look at salaries, we were a little bit lower than 21. Same thing with benefits, which makes sense. If you look at purchase services, that is up a little bit. And if you looked at that and compared, if you kind of stacked some of those extra funds for purchase services on top of salaries, that could kind of give you an idea of we spent most of that on people. Purchase services can also be things like Gentech and some other purchase professional services with a vendor. And then we had a slight uptick on supplies last year as well. And that other, it says 0%, but it's still money. And it was not a whole lot 2 years ago. It wasn't a whole lot this last year. And then again, if I look at a pie chart, if you look at our M&O, again, we are mostly spending our funds on our most important resource, which is people. Between benefits and salaries, that's about 84% of our budget. And then benefits alone last year were 21% of the M&O budget. With that, there is also the actual AFR form, which goes over all these expenses and revenues in great detail. But if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them to the best of my ability. And that rounds out my presentation for our AFR for this last federal fiscal or for this fiscal year.
Any questions?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for mentioning the ESSER funding. I know that's on all of our mind right now, and you may not have answers right now, and we can, if you have your responses come at a later time, but for the ESSER funding, what is the impact? What is the gap in funding that will exist from next year compared to this year's budget? And is that all tied to just that federal funding projects, or is the federal funding that we're using from ESSER also sprinkled in other areas of our M&O?
Well, if we just talk strictly about ESSER, ESSER 3 and ESSER 2, ESSER 2 is mostly expended. But if you look at ESSER 3, we still have this calendar year to spend those ESSER 3 funds. A lot of that is tied up in FTEs, in folks. So we've been meeting about taking a look at how we're going to incorporate much of that back into the M&O budget and recognize that some of these positions were specifically geared for ESSER 3. But capital things that we've purchased that will have a longer lifespan will be with us. But there is I'm not going to call it a fiscal cliff, but there is after this year in September, we're going to have to take a much closer look at expenses moving forward. I know that we've already met about how we're going to mitigate these funds leaving, but you can't spend money that you don't have. So we need to make sure that we're living within our means, and that's going to come. We'll have this year as our last, and a little tiny bit of the year after this, because those funds have to be spent by September. But it represents a significant lessening of our total overall funds that we have as a district. And I'm sure that we've been meeting about talking about how we're going to specifically land that federal fiscal plane, and we'll share that information as we move down the road.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and then on top of that, is there anything that we can do as a board to support how we're going to navigate through this and as early as possible?
Well, I to be honest, that the bond that we floated is a huge help. We can move a lot of capital expenses into bond funded expenses. As a board, I wouldn't say be sympathetic, but keep your eye on the budget. Keep your eye on how we're going. But there's not going to be a magic bullet on how we avoid this. It's going to be I'm not saying a shortfall, but it's going to be not as much money as we have been used to over the last few years. Luckily, there's no pandemic, but one of the benefits was this influx of federal funding that's leaving.
Thank you. Yeah, and the point is because we do want to make sure that we're communicating what our immediate future situation is going to look like, especially with our community, right, and especially with our staff, our FTE full-time employees, so that no one is caught by surprise by anything. Yeah. And for the most part, and ask when we can start supporting, because again, our community is the biggest asset and can help us provide their comments and feedback as we navigate through this too. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Okay. I just wanted to provide some comments. Thank you, Mr. Manley. I know you've been with us for a short time, but you've done some tremendous work. So thank you for being with us, and we look forward to continuing approving your budgets.
Thank you so very much. Have a great day.
Thank you. May I get a motion to approve the annual financial report?
Ms. Carmen Trujillo, so moved.
Alicia Vinkel, second.
Vote, call, for Ms. Jessica Bueno,
Aye.
Ms. Regional Carrillo,
Aye.
Ms. Erica De La Rosa,
Aye.
Dr. Alicia Vink,
Aye.
and Ms. Carmen Trujillo.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, the motion passes and we're moving on to our closing items. Do we have any board member requests?
Madam Chair, I have one. I would like to see a little more clarification on our draft items for board docs. If they could list that it's a draft and revised or a draft as of date on the bottom of them, that would really kind of help me stay organized and up to date when items change. And that's all for now. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, how about future agenda items?
Think I might have missed the boat because it's more of a board request. May I still make the comment or has the moment passed? I would just really like to see or make the request again that we have our student council or our youth advisory council, or I'm not too sure what the name is now, but have them come join the board, present to the board, visit here with us just to really get that connection back. Thank you.
Thank you. That was for the board members' requests. And for agenda items, I would like to request that on our next board agenda that we add an item to reinstate our longevity pay for our classified employees. Any other? Okay. Hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn our meeting at 5:42?
Ms. Carmen Trujillo, so moved.
Roger Carrillo, second.
Roll call for Ms. Jessica Bueno,
Aye.
Ms. Regional Carrillo,
Aye.
Ms. Erica De La Rosa,
Aye.
Dr. Alicia Vink,
Aye.
and Ms. Carmen Trujillo.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. And our next meeting will be on Tuesday, October 24th. Thank you all for your time today and continue to enjoy your fall break. Thank you.
Thank you.